It isn't Benny.
Hello and welcome once again to the Cine-Files, where each week we enter the world of a great film. We explore its themes, its history, the filmmaking, and the influence it has on us today. My name is Steve Morris. I'm a filmmaker and directing instructor in Los Angeles, California.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Roque. I'm a voiceover artist, host, writer, producer at Collider and on a number of other podcasts. So, yeah, that's my life. That's what I'll tell you. That's my life.
And today we're doing one of our most requested films.
Yeah.
And in fact, it was requested by two of our Patreon members. This is something that they got from supporting us on the show. Both Claiborne Williams and Stanley Daniels both requested John Carpenter's 1982 The Thing.
Yeah.
So first of all, thank you, Claiborne and Stanley. We really, really appreciate your support.
Absolutely.
And if anyone else wants to pick a movie, you can certainly request things on Twitter.
Yeah.
We read them.
Yeah, sure, we do.
But if you want to guarantee that we will do one of your films, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/thecine-files, just like Claiborne and Stanley did, request a film, and it will absolutely be done on this. Well, you pick 5.
Yeah.
And then we'll pick the one, because we need a little bit of
wiggle
room.
Yeah, a little bit of wiggle room, just in case.
Just in case. Because sometimes people have suggested some things that are not John and my thing.
Yeah, we're not doing Killer Tomatoes or Return of the Killer Tomatoes or anything like that.
I remember watching that. You know, because we only had so many channels, and that came on Showtime or whatever, and even in 1982 or something, I knew that was a stupid movie.
Well, and before anyone gets worried about us tackling this film, Steve and I both tested our blood with fiery, with a hot piece of iron.
Yeah,
and,
although
no animal, no alien thing happened. So we're
and yet
fine.
I did go to the bathroom for a minute, and you don't know what might have happened then.
That's true.
I'm just saying.
Oh shit! All right.
This is the problem with the thing. Is
Just
there's
stay on your side
You
of-
never. Well, fortunately, we're both wearing flamethrowers and dynamite, so
That's
I think
true.
we're going
That's
to be
true.
okay.
So we're good, and with and big beards. Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, you need to go watch The Thing. And I'll tell you, the best way to do it is to go to our website, click on the link, and you can buy The Thing and every other movie we've ever done right there from Cine-Files.net. That's Cine-Files.net. And now I've done 2 ads at the beginning of the show.
You have.
And we don't have to do them at the end of the show.
Wow, that's amazing. This makes up for the ads you didn't do at the end of Judgment at Nuremberg. So
That's a fair
respect.
point. That's a fair point. Well, you know what? It's always going to be a little different every time on the Cine-Files.
That's what people enjoy about us.
Can you tell me how you first came to The Thing?
Yeah, saw it, 1985, 86 at a friend's house on VHS or Beta. And I remember this thing getting its hooks in me for the rest of my life. It was one of the most amazing films that I saw at that time at a young age.
Yeah.
And it was a film that I couldn't believe the level of terror and horror mixed in with our own natural suspicions about people. Like, it was just such a brilliant take on more than just the alien and the best alien sci-fi horror films do that. They kind of echo a little bit of what's going on in the world or what's going on socially in your in your life. And so what I enjoyed about the film, I just remember that the pulsating soundtrack of it, like you should never, and then nobody knowing who to trust, what that would be like, especially at a young age when I'm just learning how to build friendships. As a young adult, like, it's interesting to see this whole idea of betrayal and friendship and, being stuck out in the snow. And I've always loved snow movies. So it hit all the right notes for me. And the special effects were just, for lack of a better term, out of this world for that time.
They are out of this world. So for me, I know we talked about this before, that there were certain times in our lives where both you and I lied about seeing movies, and this is one I lied about.
Really?
Yeah, because so I remember Escape from New York, which I watched over and over and over again. And this movie was one all my friends quoted, everyone always talked about, and I always sort of smiled and nodded and even quoted it because I knew the quote so well.
Right.
But I actually didn't see it until maybe 89 or 90.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and and it was funny too because I saw it with the same group of friends that had been quoting it the whole time, who
Yeah.
assumed that I had watched it before,
Right.
and so I had to watch it for the first time and kind of act like it wasn't the first time, which is a strain, oh, what a tangled web we weave.
And so you've really denied yourself a full experience by not letting yourself, react to the things naturally as you would.
Well, that's like the story of my life.
There you go.
I mean,
Okay, all right,
part of what makes me good at doing the Cine-Files is not always being 100% in the moment. There's some part of me that's kind of sitting back anyway.
Okay.
And so I saw it in the late 90s. Of course, I loved it. But it wasn't one, unlike Escape from New York and Big Trouble in Little China, the other two films, there's also Elvis, which is different, that John Carpenter did with Kurt Russell.
Yes.
I didn't know The Thing backwards and forwards, and part of that was I was not really a horror guy. Right. I really liked the movie, but I didn't watch it over and over again, and I probably hadn't seen it in 10 or 15 years until I watched it this week.
Well, that's amazing because for me, Big Trouble in Little China I've maybe seen twice in my entire life.
See, I've seen it like 50 times.
Yeah, there are certain movies that appeal to a majority of people that for me, just for whatever reason, don't grab me. Escape from New York I enjoy every once in a while, but it's not one I run back to. But The Thing, always. I've seen The Thing probably 1,000 times more than I've ever seen Big Trouble or Escape from New York. There's just something about it that really speaks to me.
I'll tell you what's funny watching it this time.
Yeah.
Is I think The Thing is a better movie.
Yes, it is.
I mean, it's like Big Trouble in Little China. I love because of the martial arts thing. It was the best American martial arts movie, and it dealt with and it had all the cliches and silliness, and it was doing a funny spin on these movies that I obsessively watched.
Right.
So Big Trouble in Little China was great to watch, and Escape from New York was so groundbreaking and weird. And again, we're back in this, we only had a few channels, so I watched it every time it was on TV. I watched it over and over again. But watching The Thing now, I'm like, no, this is a totally different level of a movie. And this is something that I think we're going to talk about throughout, which is that John Carpenter is a genre filmmaker.
Yes.
He is not like, a big filmmaker. He likes to be in horror and sci-fi and action in this low budget feeling way. And what's interesting, and I give no disrespect to those genres at all. Like, I think if there's anything you and I want to do on the Cine-Files is give every genre the respect that it deserves.
Absolutely.
And not just go, Lawrence of Arabia is great filmmaking and Escape from New York is crap.
Right.
That's not how we look at things. Because we love those films for the reason that we love those films.
Yeah.
And this film, I think, transcends genre in that really interesting way, in the same way that maybe a film like Jaws does. Or Close Encounters of the Third Kind does.
Yeah. To me, it's his greatest film.
I think it is too.
I love Halloween, and Halloween is my second favorite John Carpenter film, but this one still has everything I just love about filmmaking of that particular level. And you're right. There are some filmmakers that are happy. And the thing is, John Carpenter is maybe one moment or two moments per film away from creating B movies.
Yeah.
And these are elevated because of his knowledge of this material and his particular ability as a filmmaker to make these kinds of movies that appeal to a mass audience for little to no budget, right? For a lower budget type of movie. I don't know what the budget for this can't have been that much. It probably was mostly all special effects. It's all set in one area. You got the explosions and stuff, but it's all in one kind of area. So those kinds of, same thing with Halloween. Halloween's like in one neighborhood, right? It just doesn't run around.
The Thing is the most expensive movie he had ever made. Because Halloween, all these ones before that are really cheap.
Yeah.
He made cheap, indie films.
Yeah.
And we're going to find out at the end, this was not successeful in the box office.
Right.
This bombed.
This is another one of those films that like bombs initially, but picks up life on video.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about John Carpenter.
Sure.
So he's one of these guys like Steven Spielberg who started, like the Coen brothers, who started making films in his backyard, shooting Super 8 when he was in junior high.
Yeah.
Made films all through high school, went to USC Film School. I think he's there in the late 60s, that he's there right at the time that George Lucas and John Milius and those other guys were there.
Yeah.
I think, but I couldn't confirm it. But I'm pretty sure it's right around the same time. He actually drops out. He makes a short film right after film school, which wins the Live Action Academy Award.
Huh.
Yeah, but the movie is called The Resurrection of Bronco Billy, which I've heard of and never seen.
Okay.
So I mean, that's pretty amazing. It's like 1972 or something.
Right.
He makes Assault on Precinct 13.
Oh yeah, good film.
Which is a really good film, very low budget.
Yeah.
And then he makes a couple of other, I think Dark Star, and then he makes Halloween.
Yeah.
And Halloween, I mean, that creates a genre.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does Texas Chainsaw Massacre comes out first, I think.
74 is Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
And this is 78,
So
I
yeah,
think.
that makes sense.
But the thing that he said he said he wanted to give the experience of being in a haunted house in a film, which is these jump scares and creepy hallways and that, I mean, all of those things are so ubiquitous in horror films today, and the whole slasher genre. I mean, I guess we can say it starts with Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
right?
But Halloween is so important, in this, and it might be one of the most successful indie films of all time.
Yeah, and I don't put it in the same thing with Friday the 13th or Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street. None of those two. Like Halloween, to me, and the first and second one are both in their own box in that way because of like what you mentioned earlier, Steve, elevating the genre. I think they elevate the genre out of horror there because you don't know where that killer comes from. You don't know why he's doing what he's doing. And you don't care. Like, you don't care. It's so well done that you don't care. And Jamie Lee Curtis is fantastic in both of those films.
Yeah. Jamie Lee Curtis, I think, is such an underrated actress.
Of course.
Yeah. Because she's in some of my favorite movies of all time. Some of which we haven't done one of hers yet.
Not yet.
I'm not sure which one's going to be first on the list.
Trading Place. Yep. Good.
I mean, done. I love
Fish
Trading
Call One.
Places.
Either one of those two.
Either one of those two.
Yeah.
At some point, I will even do True Lies, although I think it's a flawed film.
Yes, right. But it's the last gasp of Schwarzenegger. That's for sure.
Okay, so he makes Elvis, which I remember watching on TV.
Yes, a TV movie.
TV movie with Kurt Russell playing Elvis.
Great as Elvis.
He was great. I honestly, I haven't seen it since I was a kid, but I remember loving it.
Oh, I see it every 3 or 4 years. That and Jesus of Nazareth. Those are those two TV movie ones that I watch all the time, every 3 or 4 years.
And so it holds up.
It holds up, yes. And there used to be that one with the Jimmy Hoffa and the Kennedys, and I can't remember what it's called, like Blood something, Blood Oath or Blood.
It's really vague in my mind.
Yeah, I used to watch that as well, but I haven't watched it in a long time. But anyway,
and then he makes Escape from New York, which we've already talked about. At some point, I would love to do that on the Cine-Files.
Snake Plissken.
And then they go immediately into The Thing.
Wow.
And what's interesting is that originally, so The Thing's based on The Thing from Outer Space, which was directed by Howard Hawks, which I've never seen.
It's boring.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it because I was like, well, where's this come from? If it's a remake, and it's kind of boring. Well, it's still good, but it's boring.
And what I've read, but maybe you can confirm, is that the whole mistrust and turning into other people, that's really not in the movie so much.
Not really.
Much more of a traditional monster movie.
Yes.
And and it's based on a book or a novella called Who Goes There? And Carpenter went back to...
Great name.
Yeah. Carpenter went back to the original book and really saw all of this mistrust and becoming other people, and that he went, oh, no, that's really what the movie is.
Yeah.
And he's hanging out with Kurt Russell the whole time that they're developing this film. And they're never talking about Kurt Russell being in the movie.
Oh, wow.
They're just talking about the movie and what they should do, and Kurt's offering his opinion, and they're kind of brainstorming about it. And the reason is that John Carpenter really wanted it to be an ensemble with no hero. So he wanted, because if you have a movie star play MacReady, it's obvious that guy's the main character.
Yeah.
But if it's all equals, then you don't know anything.
That's great.
And so they really resisted it, but they kept calling in actors, and they couldn't find anyone that they liked. And finally it was like, well, do you want to do it? And he's like, yeah, sure. Can't imagine it without Kurt Russell.
Yeah, no, not at all. He's just he's the perfect mix of one of the guys and also a guy you believe is just a little bit smarter than them, And of course you cast that way, you direct that way, but you also have to have that energy and that essence within you as an actor for that to come through on screen. And Kurt really does, Kurt is nothing if not an incredible leader whenever he's given the opportunity in any of the films he does.
He's so good at being... It's not an anti-hero exactly. It's like a reluctant hero.
Yes, reluctant hero.
Yeah.
Those are the favorite. Those are the great ones.
Is that he has those heroic qualities, but he's really not that. That's not what he's here for. I don't want to be a hero.
Yeah, and when we start the movie, there's one scene near the beginning. You're like, that's him. That's him to a T, and that's him in just about every movie to a T.
Yeah. Yeah, I love Kurt Russell.
Me too.
And I'm hoping now after Guardians of the Galaxy 2 that there's going to be a resurgence.
Yeah.
Because he's a really good actor.
Yeah.
And really likable.
Everything goes in cycles here.
Yeah. Should we get in the movie?
Yes, let's do it.
I had forgotten. It's really weird. The movie starts.
I love how you start the movie. I had forgotten.
Well, the movie starts and you hear that John Carpenter synthesizer music.
Yes.
And then up comes the credit for music, and it's Ennio Morricone.
Morricone!
And I just was like, no, it's not. That's John Carpenter music. And then later on, there are cues where you go, oh, that's Morricone.
Right.
And it's so weird. He doesn't give himself any credit for music. He composed the music for almost all his films.
Yes.
This is one of the few he didn't. He's told Morricone, I'm a huge fan of you. I've been stealing from you for my films for a long time. And he basically sent him the movie, didn't send him any notes.
Yeah.
And Morricone sent him some music back, and he said, great. And that was the whole thing.
Wow.
And then he just scored other spots where he needed, and it was just that synth, droney, pulsing John Carpenter music.
Which I love.
I do too.
Yeah, man.
It so takes me to a specific period of time.
And that's all about beats, though, right, Steve? Like, it's where you put that beat. Boom.
Yeah.
Boom. You put it too quickly and it messes you up. You put it too late and you don't quite feel the tension and the drama. You hit it at the right time, and throughout the movie when it pops up and it pops up like you're so engrossed in the movie that you notice the music only after, only after it's been up for a little bit. And that's the mark of a great composer or a great editor and a great director. They know where to put that music so that it's just accompanying what you're already watching and then elevating it.
Well, and what John Carpenter is doing with his music is totally different from what Morricone and other, you know, like John Williams and other great composers we talked about are doing. He's creating a tone.
Yes.
He is not scoring the emotion or the movement of the scene that much. It's just doom, doom. You know, it's just this, here is this tone.
Right.
We see a spaceship, comes into space. Nice little flying saucer.
I had totally forgotten about it because I haven't seen this in maybe a year or two.
Me too. I hadn't seen it forever.
I had forgotten about the space. Everything else I remember, but the spaceship I had forgotten about. Yeah.
And then we burn onto the screen John Carpenter's The Thing. That is a great title card.
Right. Still works.
And then it's Antarctica, winter, 1982. I always think this is stupid, by the way, but when they say winter, they actually mean summer, right? Because the winter in Antarctica is the summer.
Oh.
Because the seasons are reversed.
Okay, good call.
So are they saying but then it doesn't matter.
I think people wouldn't know that right offhand.
No,
so they're just saying winter.
It's all good.
Because snow's on the ground.
It's all good.
Yeah. And Kurt Russell says first week of winter after the Norwegian stuff happens. Right. So he says winter.
Yeah. No, it's dumb. I mean, we also didn't have to check to see if the toilets are spinning the other way. It's all fine. And we start, the opening is great.
Yeah.
First of all, it looks great.
Yes.
We're in this beautiful snowfield shot outside of Juneau, Alaska. Not easy. Where this part was shot there. And they also shot in British Columbia. The main base is in British Columbia. And we see this dog, wolfy sort of dog, running across the snow. And we see a helicopter swoop in behind it and a guy lean out with a sniper rifle.
Yeah. One of the worst snipers I've ever seen in my entire life.
Doesn't seem like this is the toughest shot.
Yeah. They're so close to this dog and they keep missing it. And the dog's not doing like weird speed jumps or speed like moves or jumps or jolts or whatever to get away from the bullets. It's just running like a dog would run.
Well, and the thing, too, something that's come up on our show before is, in general, you never kill a dog.
Yes, true.
Movies will kill hundreds of people.
Yeah.
But you kill a dog, and that is very upsetting.
It's a whole nother
And so
ballgame.
to open a movie with a human just trying to shoot a really beautiful dog, it just seems horrible.
Right.
We end up at the National Science Institute Station 4. We got some guys playing ping pong inside. We see a little bit. And the interiors, by the way, are shot on Universal.
Okay.
So they're going back and forth. But they had to keep them all cold because they still wanted breath and stuff like that.
Yeah.
This was a brutal, brutal shoot.
I'm sure.
In all sorts of ways for people. I mean, this is really, really rough.
Anything in the snow or water is brutal.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
There's Kurt Russell making himself a drink. Playing chess against the computer.
Right.
Knight 6. Checkmate. Checkmate.
Cheeky bitch.
What? You have a very strong point here.
This is the moment.
Oh, right. You said, okay.
This is
what
the
is
moment where this is Kurt Russell in the 80s to a T. Cussing at the computer, an inanimate object, and then pouring the liquor into the computer, short-circuiting the computer. Every person who's played video games in their entire life has wanted to do that at one point or another to whatever system they were playing on. They've wanted to throw it out the window, throw it against the wall, pour water on it, tell it to fuck off because it outsmarted you in some way that you're like, not believable. Not believable. and he cusses the computer out for playing chess and beating him, calls it a bitch, pours the J&B, I think, that he's drinking into the console and short circuits it. And that's Kurt Russell to a T.
Well, and something we have to remember, which, we haven't done, at some point I'm sure maybe we'll do like a full, bigger bio of Kurt Russell, but what was he really known for in the 70s?
Disney films.
Disney films.
Live-action Disney films, yeah.
So he goes from the Disney films, which I loved as a kid.
Yeah.
Computer wore tennis shoes and Strongest Kid in the World or whatever they were.
Right.
I love these movies.
Him and Jan Michael Vincent made their names
I
off
know,
those,
right?
yeah.
And then he goes and does Elvis. Then he does Snake Plissken,
Right.
and now he's doing this. I mean, talk about a transformation of an actor.
Yeah.
Helicopter's still chasing the dog. They start to come in towards this station. And our guys come out and go, what are they doing?
Right. And we've seen the guys, they're playing ping pong.
Right.
One's messing with the radio. The other guy's like doing whatever. So we get this feeling these guys have been in this place for a while.
Yeah.
Then this comes out of nowhere and they run out. Yeah.
And again, you see someone trying to shoot a dog.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they throw, I think we find out later it's like a kerosene Molotov cocktail, but it looks like a grenade or something at this dog. You're like, holy shit, what is going on? They land, and the Norwegians comes out, scream, and the dog runs up to our guys.
Yeah.
Hangs out immediately with Clark, the character of Clark. And by the way, all of these actors are all great supporting actors that you know.
And have worked for decades.
Yeah.
For decades.
And I'm not going to give you all their names because it's just too much.
Yeah.
And keeping straight who is that guy and where's that guy from? It's like, it's a lot.
Yeah.
This is a big ensemble of all dudes.
Yep.
And not only was it an all male cast, with the exception of Adrian Barbeau, I think is the voice of the computer.
Oh, right.
But other than that, it's almost entirely all male crew.
Oh, wow.
Because they're out deep in the snow doing this thing, and so there's a lot of manliness to make this film.
Party, yeah.
And the dog goes and runs to Clark, and the Norwegian comes out with a gun and is saying something, but of course we don't know what the hell he's saying.
Right.
He actually opens fire.
Right.
And Daniel Moffat, who plays Gary, I think, shoots the Norwegian.
Yes.
We last saw Daniel Moffat as Lyndon Johnson in The Right Stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Shoots the Norwegian. The other guy goes to get more grenades or something and blows up.
Well, what happens is he pulls one out, and when he tries to throw it, it slips out of his hand, and then he tries to
dig it out of the snow,
and he blows up along with the helicopter.
Yeah.
And then this guy shoots one of the dudes in the leg.
One of the guys gets hit,
and that's why Daniel Moffat breaks the glass and shoots the dude in the head and kills him.
Yeah. So this is a hell of an opening to a movie.
Yes, it is.
We don't know what the fuck's going on.
Nope.
Like really strange. And what the movie does really, really well, we talked about before this idea of you can have the audience ahead of the cast, the characters. You can have the audience behind the characters or with the characters. Yeah. Here we are with the characters.
Yep.
We are standing with them in the snow going, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
And trying to figure out. We don't know anything that they don't know, and they don't know anything that we don't know.
Right.
That's a really strong opening of a movie. And that's when Kurt Russell says the thing that you said of
first goddamn week of winter.
Yeah.
And the dog is very attracted to this guy Clark, which is played by Richard Mauser.
Who I love to death.
He's great. We've seen him in so many things. There's these guys. I'm sure you would want to be one of these guys.
Of course.
Of these working character actors that are always good, that you know.
Yep.
But they also aren't famous enough. They can go out and go to a restaurant and maybe they get recognized. Maybe
only
they don't.
idiots like me recognize them and say, "I really appreciate your work," and blah blah blah. Yeah,
exactly.
Like Richard Disser plays the doctor, and he's the same guy from L.A. Law. He was the head of L.A. Law. I think Wilford Brimley's in this, isn't he? Yeah,
of course.
Brimley's in this, and then. This is a bunch of T.K. Carter, who was great through the 80s, had his own TV series in the 80s.
Don't forget Keith David.
And of course, Keith David, who's obviously still working now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people. And so we see Wilford. I love Wilford Brimley.
Yeah.
And although it's weird seeing Wilford Brimley without a mustache, it just freaks me out a little bit because that mustache is so iconic.
Glasses.
And he's talking to the radio guy, and we established that, we can't get the radio to work. That's an important thing that's going to come in later.
And that guy was in the Warriors. He was one of the Warriors.
Oh, you're right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that guy has worked for decades as well.
The Warriors is another fascinating. See, this is the thing. When we get into, like, I don't think this applies to the thing, but it definitely applies to, like, Big Trouble in Little China and Escape from New York, is that there are movies you love because you, like, what a genre film has to accomplish is not the same thing if it accomplishes what it's supposed to accomplish in its genre,
Yeah.
that is great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This movie, as I say, I feel like it transcends genre
Yeah.
to some degree. But that doesn't mean we can't love... I mean, do I think The Warriors is a great film? No.
Right.
Probably not.
Right.
It's an important film, and I love the film for what it is.
It's a cult-like devotion.
No question about it.
Like a year or two ago, some of the Warriors got together
Yeah,
in, I think, Coney Island and took the subway the same...
Yeah, because it was the 40th
distance.
anniversary
Yeah.
or something like that. Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
hard for me to hear, yeah.
I know, because we're old. So we start to meet some of the other characters, as we just talked about. And then the doctor, Richard Dessart, says...
Guys as crazy as that could have done a lot of damage to their own before they got to us.
Nothing we can do about that.
Oh, yes, there is. I want to go up.
In this weather?
And there's some resistance that maybe a big storm is coming up. And by the way, there were really big storms.
I'm sure.
While they were up there shooting.
Yeah.
And it was cold and nasty. And they got caught at one point in a whiteout when they were out. And Kurt's kind of reaction was he'd heard this thing about a whiteout of like, oh, well, how bad could that really be?
Mm-hmm.
And then they get caught in it, and it's like, oh, you can't see your hand in front of your face. You are surrounded by white swirling snow. And he said it was absolutely terrifying.
I'm sure.
Yeah. I've been caught in a dust storm like that.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it's weird.
I've never been caught in anything like that.
Yeah.
That would scare the hell out of me.
It was weird. Yeah. Where literally, like, I was at Burning Man and I'm walking behind people and I could see just barely the person who was walking 2 feet in front of me.
Right.
Like just enough that I didn't lose them.
Right.
You know? And at one point we kind of just reached out and put our hand on each other's back. It was that, and trying to figure out, are we walking the right way?
Right.
It was terrifying. Not terrifying. It was intense.
Okay.
Yeah. So as Kurt Russell and the doc are leaving in the helicopter, I believe that we must take a moment to show the proper respect to Kurt Russell's hat.
Yes.
That is a hat. I mean, that thing, it is a big, floppy.
Yep.
It is so uncool. It is super cool. That is the only way I could describe it.
Yep.
And looking with his big, bushy, bearded hair and all this,
Yeah.
it is a whole thing.
Yep.
Yeah, that is a
great hat.
I don't know when that hat's going to catch on style-wise. I feel like it should.
Well, shout out to the costume designers then, because that you got to come up with those kind of things and make the look work, and it really does.
I had always assumed, by the way, that Kurt Russell had picked out that hat, because how would you end up there? It was picked for him, and he actually wasn't a fan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
That's just surprising to me.
That makes sense.
So they go off of the helicopter, and what they do is that the helicopter has dual controls, so that Kurt Russell can look like he's flying the helicopter, but really there's another pilot who's doing the work.
Oh, gosh.
But he had given Kurt some pointers.
Mm-hmm.
So at one point he just took his hands off the controls, said it's on you, and you could see in the film the helicopter when it's taking off real nice, realize whoa, dips a little bit, and then that's when Kurt Russell had the controls. And then after we leave, we hear Stevie Wonder. Superstitious,
Yeah.
which is a great song,
Yeah.
and the camera is moving through the place while T.K. Carter is working in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a key thing to horror films, in particular John Carpenter. We talked about this in Judgment in Nuremberg, a motivated camera move versus an unmotivated camera move.
Right.
If the camera is moving in a horror movie behind the people when they don't see it, what do you feel like?
Yeah.
You feel like something's watching you.
Yep.
Something's there.
Right.
Something's happening, but we don't know what it is.
Right.
Yeah. And who do we see kind of walking around and looking around? The dog.
Yeah.
And there's a really interesting moment that's great, which is that at the end of the sequence, we see the dog walking down the hallway. We see a shadow of a person.
Yeah.
The dog walks into that room, and the shadow turns.
And then it goes to black.
And then it goes to black.
Yeah, he does a lot of fade to blacks in this movie.
Yeah.
It is interesting. Yeah.
It's definitely, what he says is a technique they discovered in the editing room as they were doing it.
Ah.
These fade outs, these sort of make things kind of episodic.
That's smart.
Yeah, fade to black sort of gives you a moment to think.
Yes.
And go, oh, what did that mean?
Right.
What was that shadow? Who was that person?
Or to take a breath.
Yeah,
And savor
absolutely
the
true.
situation. Yeah.
We end up at the Norwegian camp. Some of it was shot on location. The interiors are shot in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
Here's how they shot what was on location, which is brilliant. That's our camp after they blow it up at the end of the film.
Oh, how funny.
Isn't that smart?
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And when they shot the stuff in LA, it was during a heat wave. It's like 105 degrees. And they're wearing fur coats and all this stuff. And they have to make the steam come out of their mouth. And there are a bunch of different techniques, one of which was to drink super, super hot coffee. Wow. before exhaling, and the other was something that Frank Capra developed when he did Lost Horizon, which is you take a little. This is really dangerous, by the way. You take a little tiny piece of dry ice and you put it sort of in a cage, and then you hold that in your mouth, so that your breath is now super cold.
Wow.
The problem is that what happened with Frank Capra? I didn't hear any of this happen here, but I know with Capra is that dry ice is really cold.
Yeah.
And if it freezes the cage, it can freeze your tongue and stick to your tongue.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So he kind of hurt some of his actors trying to do this.
Of course, directors.
Yeah, and that's just not so much fun to do.
No.
They look around, they don't find anyone there, but they do find first a bloody axe.
Yeah.
And then they walk inside, and there's a guy frozen in a chair. And you can see the blood frozen.
Yeah.
It's a really good, kind of scary,
Yeah.
weird moment.
I mean, and this is where you see the effects of this, like the terror. You see the horror starting to build now, right? Why are they shooting this dog? This dog, the way the camera moves, which is very reminiscent of how Michael Myers moves through Halloween.
Oh, yeah,
right.
good point.
And then you have the dog kind of walking into the fact that you see the dog walk. The way they directed this dog is amazing. God love this dog because it conveyed the emotions that you see by the actions of the dog. Like the fact that it walks through the hallway confidently, going into the room, and it has that moment where it pauses, then goes into the room with this. It looks like it's going to be. It knows exactly what it's doing, and then you see this like shadow turn. That's such a great sequence, so that when we get to this moment here of everything that's happening in the camp, we're already in this feeling like something weird is happening here, right? And
there's a really great slow build of dread. And you see, too, that this frozen guy in the chair, he's got a razor blade, and he slit his throat and his wrists.
Yep.
And you go like, okay, why?
Yeah.
And by the way, the frozen blood is thickened with the same stuff they used to make Twinkies.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah. So that's everything a growing boy needs.
Yeah.
And as we're walking through, we find this big pit, this big ice pit. Maybe they found a fossil. We go outside and we see someone who's burnt up with kerosene.
Yeah.
This weird shit going on.
Yep.
And the remains look weird.
Yeah. Not human-like.
Humanish.
Humanish. Yes.
It's human adjacent. And then they fly back.
Yeah. With this body.
With the body. Yeah.
Yeah.
They bring the body back to base. And as they're flying back into base, who's looking out at the window watching them come back in?
The dog.
The dog.
Yep.
I'm starting not to trust this dog.
Yeah.
We examine the crazy body, which is like smoking.
Yeah. Still.
Yeah. And apparently that particular kind of smoke that they were using is really rough on people's lungs, which is part of why Wilford Brimley and some of the other people are covering their mouths. And Carpenter they were like, this is just terrible.
Right.
And he said, use it.
Yeah.
Which is
The director
smart.
would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you get the first shot of that kind of double split two head, which is kind of some of the design stuff we're going to see throughout the film.
It's really horrific. The melting. It's like the tongue sticking out, the teeth. It's all in horror too. The faces are not just regular faces. The faces are caught in the middle of a scream.
Yeah.
This primal scream, which is really great.
And the tone is just kind of slow
Yeah.
and heavy.
Yeah.
Like you just feel that we're not having jump scares or like it's not. It's like a slow build of something really, really bad is happening. We go into an autopsy.
Yes.
That is a real cow's liver that Wilford Brimley is pulling out of there, which apparently he grew up on a farm, so he didn't have any problem with moving these parts around. Of
course.
But we're getting some good grossness.
Yeah.
John Carpenter is not afraid of just being gross. And that night, they're watching the VHS tape of like Let's Make a Deal, which is funny because Monty Hall just died.
Just passed away. Yeah.
Just died, yeah.
Yeah. So we're doing a tribute to him for this.
Yeah, this is this week on the Cine-Files, our tribute to Monty Hall. That's all the mention he's getting.
That's right.
Although I did grow up watching Let's Make a Deal.
Of course, who didn't?
And the dog kind of scares one of the guys. I think it's Fuchs, maybe. And they go, okay, let's put the dog in the kennel with the other dogs. Which
Right.
I don't know why we haven't done that before. And Mauser Clark, who's the guy who seems most connected with the dog, brings the dog to the kennel. The dog walks in, sits down right in the middle of the kennel. Clark goes away. The dog is sitting in the middle of the kennel. The other dogs are starting to get pretty uncomfortable with this.
Yeah.
There's something about this dog they don't like. The dog's just sitting there. And then, how would you describe what happens next?
Well, traditional nature documentaries show you that when what would you say, a new animal is introduced from the species around other similar animals, there is a battle for dominance.
Yes.
Right? And
well,
so
that certainly guess that happens.
This takes it to a whole nother level. And that's what's great about dogs. Dogs can always sense things on other levels that we don't as human beings. They have this extra sense that allows, and I'm not saying like in a scientific way, but they can sense things before we do. Dogs sometimes will run off before we hear anything, or send something before we hear anything, or get out of the way. You watch earthquake videos, dogs start running before the building starts shaking because they can sense it.
Right.
And so that happens. They have that, and I think that's what's so great. He takes advantage of the situation because immediately the other dogs are just kind of chilling, and then all of a sudden, the alien dog starts to pant in a certain way that's powerful. And the other dogs react to it because they sense this is not a dog. This is not one of us. And then it starts to open its mouth like a crazy blooming flower. This thing sticks out. These wires start coming out.
Tentacles.
Yeah, tentacles, and then these
out
wires come out of it like in tentacle ways, and then the dogs start barking like crazy, going insane. And then one dog, which I love to pieces, and it really accentuates the horror, starts chewing on the fence to get out.
Yep.
That's how scared those dogs are.
Yep. And the dog, and this whatever it is mutates and grabs the dogs and sprays them with some kind of liquid, and it's just all really. I don't think there's been anything like this on film up to this point that I know of.
Yeah.
I mean, this is some really weird, crazy shit.
Mm-hmm.
And the effects guy is a guy named Rob Bottin,
Yeah.
or Bottin, and this is his first movie.
Wow.
He's like 23,
Yeah.
and he was a big John Carpenter fan, and he kind of followed him around and said, I want to work with you. And Carpenter said, whatever. And he thought, okay, well, that's it. I just look like a big jerk. It was really stupid. And then 2 weeks later, he called him and said, hey, you want to do this movie, The Thing? It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there is some of the effects. It might be the dog. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Where Rob had to go away, and they actually did call Stan Winston in. And he did some of it too. I always assumed this was all Stan Winston, but it's not.
Right.
Yeah. He only came in, and maybe it was the dog. It did like one of the big effects, but that's it. This thing is.
Maybe the last big effect.
I don't think it's the last one.
Okay.
I don't think so. Okay. Obviously, we're going to get to that.
Yeah.
And then while this is going on, Kurt Russell is at the refrigerator getting a beer. Here's a weird sound.
Yeah.
And he hits that alarm real fast.
Yeah, he does. Because of what he's seen at that other base, he that's his reaction.
I think so.
He has that extra knowledge that those guys don't have, other than Richard Dissett, who came with him, and so he hits that alarm, and they all run down there. And Masur is the first one that runs back because he had put the dog in there in the kennel, and then we see what that thing is, and which is really great for you to see the monster this early in the monster movie. I think is a brilliant thing. It's a very difficult thing to do this, because seeing it this early means you have to spend the rest of the movie kind of having them deal with the fact that they've seen it already, as opposed to it picking them off one by one without them knowing what the fuck it is, And so this is an interesting movie.
Well, and what's interesting too, and we talked about this extensively in Jaws, which is the moment you really see the thing, it usually becomes less scary, and that is not the case here.
Not at all.
And I think part of why it's not the case here is that the shark looks like a shark.
Right.
So once you've seen it, you go like, oh, I know what that is.
I can put that in a box.
This one, you never know what it is.
No.
It keeps changing. We don't know what the thing is.
It grows eyes. It grows tentacles.
Legs.
It grows legs. Yeah, it grows all kinds of weird things to get
Different
out of
heads,
situations.
and it is really weird.
It is made of multiple tendons.
And the moment that McCready gets everyone and they all rush to the kennel and they look into that cage and they see it for the first time.
Oh, man.
Holy shit.
You're right.
And what's interesting too, I think we're pretty clear now what the Norwegians were upset about.
Yeah, exactly.
They knew, and we immediately see Kurt Russell's leadership, we need the flamethrower.
Right.
Why do they have so many flamethrowers at this?
Well, it's the snow. You never know when you need it.
you know. So I should write to Hoover, because Hoover is my partner. He's done 5 trips to Antarctica.
Yeah.
I'll ask him how many flamethrowers he had.
No, but trips to Antarctica is different. Has he worked in Antarctica at a science station, then I
He
want to
is
know.
certainly. I'm sure he's been to science stations in Antarctica.
Because that would make sense. Because I would think you'd want to have a flamethrower available just in case it's so much snow.
It seems to me. Well, okay.
To melt the snow or something, you know.
I'm really look. It's a good thing they have them.
Yes,
it's
it
a
is.
really good thing they have all these.
We established
flamethrowers.
Childs is having the flamethrower.
Yep.
He is so that he calls him in, and he's late. Childs is late to the situation, and everyone else is shooting this thing, and this thing grows hands
Yeah.
and climbs through the roof, and whatever's left of this thing, which is still alive and doing whatever it's doing, Childs finally sets on fire.
Yeah, when those claws come out of this thing, it is like it's some weird, crazy stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, and so then Childs shows up and burns this thing, and one of the last things you see is this weird eye.
Yeah.
Look, it is weird and creepy. So let's have another autopsy.
Sure.
So where Wilford Brimley really didn't seem to have so much problem with the first one.
No.
This one's maybe a little rougher.
Yeah.
And we don't know what he's looking at. There's weird, like, limbs and skin, and it is really,
Dog
really
parts?
weird.
Yeah.
And they come up with this idea, okay, this is an organism that imitates other life forms, and it's attacked and absorbed and imitated the dogs. And good thing we got to it before it could finish whatever it was trying to do, so we're cool, right?
Not at all. And what's great about this is it's believable because it's not just a bunch of roughnecks or a bunch of regular dudes. This is a science center.
Yeah.
So these people have a proclivity to look at things in a
Right.
scientific way. So you believe that they can analyze this early in the film.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
And they have. We start to
Yep.
learn like what everybody's skills are.
Yeah.
And it seems like Wilford Brimley's character, which is Blair, I think.
Yeah.
That he's like kind of the really smart one.
Yeah.
That seems to be how they're treating him, which is great casting for Wilford Brimley. And his performance in this film is so odd.
Ah, man.
It's very because you're kind of used to him being the oatmeal guy.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
really, and yet he could be really scary and
Very scary.
Yeah, and he will be in this film.
Those dead eyes.
Yeah. And immediately we see that Wilford Brimley seems to maybe be worried about Clark.
Clark,
Yeah.
did you notice anything strange about the dog? Anything at all?
Strange. No.
What was the dog doing in the rec room?
I don't know. It's just wandering around camp all day.
Are you saying to me the dog wasn't put in the kennel until last night?
Right.
How long were you alone with that dog?
I don't know, an hour and a half maybe. What the hell are you looking at me like that for?
And this is this thing that's now started in the film. We've said that this alien can become other things somehow, and now Wilford Brimley's asking Clark, when were you with the dog and what happened?
Yeah.
And suddenly we get it.
Right.
Wilford Brimley doesn't know if Clark is an alien.
Yeah.
That is what this movie is. This movie is about not knowing.
Yep.
And we see that Wilford is still sort of cogitating all this while they're watching the VHS tapes of the Norwegian guys. And they see that they went somewhere and they look at a map and try to figure out where this thing is. And Max says, let's go look. And they get out in the helicopter and they fly to this big, huge crater.
Yeah.
And they look down at a spaceship.
Right. How insane is that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's fairly crazy. And what's really crazy to me is that they climb down into the spaceship.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? Maybe that's not what I want to do.
After seeing that, why would you climb into its headquarters or whatever?
It
Yeah.
seems crazy. And we get a little exposition that this is probably 100,000 years. It's been
Yeah.
buried for 100,000 years.
Yep.
And again, we fade to white. And now we have a big meeting discussing what it is we should do. Keith David doesn't really believe it.
I just cannot believe any of this voodoo bullshit.
Yeah.
Palmer, which is one of the other characters we haven't talked about yet, he's kind of the drugged out
Yeah.
sort of,
Yeah.
He's
the former Vietnam pilot, helicopter pilot.
that's what
that
he
guy.
is.
Yeah.
And he's like, he's the conspiracy theorist. Oh, there are aliens happening all the time. They happen in South America. Blah blah.
They
blah.
own half of South. They own all of South America.
Yeah. And in comes TK, rolls in on his roller skates, and he's got some torn up long underwear.
Yeah.
So apparently there's something. This is one of the weaker plants, I think. But there's something about, yes, they tear up people's clothes when they invade them, but no one wrote their name on their underwear.
Right.
So we don't know whose this was, which is a lesson to you kids out there. Always write your name on your underwear, because if an alien invades you, you
Yeah.
want people to know that you're the alien.
Yeah. Right. And to take you out.
Yeah. Wait, maybe this is bad advice.
Well, No, I think it's good advice. You want people to know that you're the alien, so you don't kill other people. You don't want that on your conscience.
And at the end of their meeting, they ask Wilford Brimley, who again we sort of established as a smart guy, do you believe any of this? And he just gives a look.
Yeah.
Yeah. He does a computer simulation
Yeah.
of the thing.
1980s
1982 computer simulation. This seems a little wonky for me, but he kind of comes to the conclusion that the computer tells him, yes, someone is probably infected, and if it goes on and gets out into the world, it's going to basically wipe out the whole population.
It says 75% possibility that someone is infected with it currently, and then it shows that cell consuming the cell of the host and then becoming a variation of a combination of both the cells.
Yep.
Right. It's pretty intense.
Yeah, which leads him to grab a bottle of booze and a revolver. Yeah. Which, by the way, I think those seem like the right choices.
I feel like once you find out that there's this thing that could wipe out the entire planet, your responsibility as a scientist is to make sure it does not in any way, shape, or form leave the area.
Yes.
Right? And he flips out.
Yeah. Yeah. Justifiably so.
Yeah, probably. But he doesn't tell everybody else because he doesn't know who to believe.
Kurt's having a little bit of a drink, and we need to move the remains to the storeroom.
Right.
That doesn't seem... I don't want these remains in my storeroom. And, of course, we know we're watching a horror film, so we know that bad things are still going to happen.
Right.
And TK and Bennings go in the storage room. TK comes outside with Mac, and Mac starts talking to TK. That's McCready. That's Kurt Russell's character.
Yeah.
And we start to talk about, hey, there's something wrong with Blair.
Right.
There's something wrong with Blair. He's locked himself in his room and he won't answer the door. So I took one of his notebooks from the lab. Yeah. Listen. It could have imitated 1 million life forms on 1 million planets. Could change into any one of them at any time. Now it wants life forms on Earth.
It's getting cold in here, Fuchs, and I haven't slept in
Wait a
2
minute,
days.
Mac, wait a minute. It needs to be alone and in close proximity with the life form to be absorbed. The chameleon strikes in the dark.
So is Blair cracking up or what?
Damn it, McCready, there is still cellular activity in these burned remains. They're not dead yet.
And while they're having this conversation, we see some movement under that, where the remains are, under the blanket. And then we see the movement of some blood. And then when TK finally comes back to the storage room, there's this really weird shot of Bennings, the guy that got left there.
Yeah.
With a lot of weird shit happening to him.
Yes.
It is nasty.
Yep.
TK, of course, freaks out, goes to get Mac, goes to find Bennings. He was right there. I know he was right there.
He was right there.
And he's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we all run out into the snow. I think we found Bennings.
Yeah.
And he's sort of mid-mutation.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And this actor does a great job, too, of doing it. A guy we've seen in numerous things as well. Again, falls down on his knees, and then just the acting he does with the claw for a hand when he looks back over his shoulder and like just screams some alien
weird
scream.
noise, yeah.
Yeah, from like 100,000 years ago, this ancient primal scream. And then they Kurt Russell kicks that thing over, and then they set him on fire with the flare,
flamethrowers.
yeah,
With the flare.
Yeah.
Right, because he knocks over the gas can
Yep.
and lights this thing up.
They keep trying to kill this thing.
Yeah.
And it keeps like little parts of it keep separating and becoming something and staying alive. So it's amazing what the thing is. Yeah.
And what this movie does is force you as the audience to go, what would I do?
Yes, exactly.
So what would you do?
At this point, I'm doing everything Kurt Russell's doing in my mind, right? You're just like, you're making sure, because you can't do it on your own, and you can't sit there and think everyone else is the alien, and you're not.
Well, and this is the thing. It's like part of you wants to get the fuck away from all these other people.
But where the fuck are you going to go?
Well, and it's when people are away from other people is when they could possibly get taken over by the alien.
Exactly.
And so you want to have people be together.
Right.
But if you're together and one of them's an alien, well, then you might get killed. Right. Like it is a tough survival puzzle that we're trying to figure out.
Which is why it's a great horror film. It puts you in that situation of like, what would you really do? Because if you do leave and you don't know if you're infected or not, you could spread it to everybody else.
So this is my question that I wanted to ask is I am not 100% sure what exactly is happening in the film.
Right.
Is it that when the alien has taken over and learns enough of your memories to pretend to be you?
Yeah.
And you are dead. Or is it that you continue to know that you're you with all of your memories and you don't realize the alien is inside you?
Could be because that's what happens to what's his face. He starts to feel these. To Norris, because he starts to feel these like chest pains or
Right.
hurts in his stomach. He doesn't know he's an alien. He's just feeling these pains.
Right.
And then it isn't later until he has that heart attack after Kurt Russell throws him off in the storeroom when they think Kurt Russell could be
Right.
or Mac could be infected, that he has complete shutdown.
Yeah.
Right. And once again, this thing has just come out of the snow. It's been buried for 100,000 years. So its drive, its motivation is to get back into space. Because it's been buried for 100,000 years, trying to go home. That's the thing in my mind. This is the reverse of E.T. This film is a companion piece to E.T. because E.T. is trying to get home as well because he misses his family. And so he's trying to hide out and all this kind of stuff. And the kids, he uses his power. The thing is trying to get home back to his family as well, or its family as well. And it's doing whatever it can to survive until it can build its spaceship near the end and try to leave. And so it's crazy to me.
Two things about that.
Yes.
First, it's totally fascinating that you said that.
Yeah.
Because do you know when E.T. came out?
82.
2 weeks before The Thing.
Wow!
2 weeks before The Thing. And they think that one of the reasons that The Thing didn't do well was because the biggest movie of all time, which E.T. was, came out 2 weeks before. And it is exactly what you said. This is the complete opposite view of what alien life is. And everyone in the world is embracing the sweet alien, and nobody wants to go watch The Thing, which is why it took a long time to discover after.
Yeah.
The second thing that I say, because this is something they say later, oh, he's just trying to go home.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, we don't really know what this alien is trying to do.
No.
I mean, it is building a ship. We're going to get to all
The
that
fact that
later.
it's building a ship to me.
Yeah,
tells me
it's
trying to go
something
home.
like that.
Yeah.
Mac talks to Gary, and Gary just doesn't seem to get what's going on.
No.
Gary is Daniel Moffat's character.
He doesn't want to get it because he's like, that's my friend.
Yeah.
He's been my friend for 10 years. And Kurt was like,
Not anymore.
not anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and this is a pickup. They added this scene later as they're editing the film because they realize we got to make this really clear.
Yes.
What's going on with the audience? It's a really, really important scene.
I agree.
And Mac's like, we got to burn everybody. Anyone that that fire seems to be the only thing that's going to stop these guys.
Yeah.
And in the midst of this, the person that we really want to find is Blair.
Yeah.
Who we cannot find. We got Windows, who's our radio. So many characters in this thing. He's still trying to get the radio to work. And Max sees someone run inside from the helicopter. We think that might be Blair.
Yeah.
He examines the helicopter, and it's ripped to pieces.
So he's stranding him.
Yeah.
This alien is stranding them. Yeah.
Is the alien stranding them?
Oh, right. Blair is stranding them. Yes.
Well, this is one of the things. We don't know when. I mean, spoiler
When Blair
alert,
becomes,
Blair is going to be.
Well, don't be a spoiler. I mean, you have to watch the movie. You're listening to us. It's no spoiler.
Well, and we're
alert.
going to spoil everything anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Is
No
that
spoiler alert.
is that one of the things is that Blair is going to become the alien.
Yeah.
But we have no way of knowing when in the movie when is he an alien?
Exactly.
It's impossible for us to know. And it's sort of, I mean, I kind of have my suspicion of when it happens.
Yeah.
But it's hard to figure out. This movie is hard to figure out. And one of the things that's interesting that I think is important in films is that limited light is intrinsically scary. So flashlights mean that you could only see part of the landscape at the same time. And something we're going to use a whole bunch in this film later is flares.
Yeah.
And they too, it's the same thing. It's like we're going to light up this one area and that's it. Yeah. Now, I don't know why they all are using flares all the time, but man, it sure looks cool.
Yep.
Inside, we hear yelling and freaking out, and Wilford Brimley has gone apeshit crazy.
Nobody interferes, I'll kill him. Sleep in here. We're gonna call.
He smashed up some of the chopper pretty good.
Nobody.
Childs, go see if he got to the tractor.
Nobody gets in and out of here. Nobody.
He's got an axe. He's destroying the computers. He's shooting his revolver at people.
Yeah.
Almost looks like he hits Keith David.
Yes.
Which I guess he doesn't. Keith David in this scene, when he runs up, by the way, you notice he's kind of hiding his left hand because he broke it in a car accident. So it's got a big cast on it.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
How funny.
And they get a big table and they slam Wilford Brimley against the wall.
Yeah.
And he is wigging out.
Yeah. Because he doesn't want anybody to leave and spread this thing because he can't trust anybody.
Well, this is the thing. So one motivation is that he sees the computer simulation that says this alien is here. If the alien gets out in the world, it's going to wipe out the Earth.
Yeah.
So he destroys the helicopter to protect the world from
Yeah.
the alien.
Yeah.
Another possibility, he already is the alien.
Right.
I think it's the former. I think he's still Blair wigging out. What do you think?
I got something even deeper.
Okay.
I think the alien is already inside him and is taking advantage of Blair's mind to convince him to do these things in the pure way that he's saving the Earth. But the alien knows he's motivating him to do this so that he can strand them there and use them for what he needs them for.
Well, and there's another possibility too, or
Yeah.
maybe an additional thing on
Yeah.
top is that there's also the possibility if you remain yourself
Yeah.
when the alien takes over, that there's some period where there's a battle of wills between you and the thing that's taking you over.
Yeah.
Because in the Norwegian camp, we see the guy who slit his throat and his wrists.
Yeah.
Is that maybe he knew he had become the alien,
Right.
and that was his way of not killing his friends.
Yeah.
And maybe, so it could be that Blair is in a battle,
Yeah.
an internal battle right now.
Yep.
And of course, we're never going to know.
Not until later, yeah.
Well, we're not going to know. We're never going to know what exactly was going on.
True.
Right now.
True.
We do certainly find out what's happened to Blair. They lock him up in the tool shed.
Yeah.
And right at the end, what does Blair say?
I don't know who to trust.
I know what you mean, Blair.
Trust's a tough thing to come by these days. Tell you what, why don't you just trust in the Lord?
Watch Clark.
What?
I said watch Clark. And watch him close. Do you hear me?
Watch Clark.
And what's funny is the movie is direct. We're not trusting Clark much either.
Right.
You know, and the movie is telling us to watch Clark. But we don't really know.
And if he's the alien, why is he telling them to watch Clark?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Daniel Moffat, who seems to be kind of the leaderish guy, I think.
Yeah.
Like the guy who's supposed to be in charge. He just like, well, we're just going to hold up here till spring.
All we can do now is hold up till spring, wait for the rescue team.
No, we don't wait. Somebody in this camp ain't what he appears to be. Right now, that may be one or two of us. By spring, it could be all of us.
So how do we know who's human? If I was an imitation, a perfect imitation, how would you know if it was really me?
And we go, oh, let's go look at the blood.
Yeah.
Because we'll be able to test our blood against the original blood and see if something's changed.
Right.
So they go into where they have their bags of blood stored. Nope. Someone's cut open the blood.
Yep.
And we don't see Clark right now.
Right.
Yeah. So again, we're continually showing suspicion. And who else has access to that blood? Doc and Moffat.
Right.
So suddenly now we have suspicion on them. And and the guys are starting to turn on each other now.
Yep. Yeah.
And this is the thing. This is what elevates the film. And I was trying to think of what is the difference between a pure genre film and an elevated genre film. These are terms I'm just making up right now.
Sure, sure.
But like Jaws being, I would say, the classic example.
Yeah.
And maybe Touch of Evil too. That's another one where it's like, it looks like a genre film, but it elevates, it goes beyond that genre. Is that there's a certain point where real deep human emotion comes in.
Yeah.
In a way that I like Escape from New York a lot, but there isn't any deep human emotion there. You're there for the ride. You're there to enjoy that genre.
Right.
You know, there are all sorts of kung fu movies where I love watching them because they have great kung fu scenes, but I'm not really feeling emotions. Whereas Jaws, you really feel a deep, profound connection to those characters.
Yep.
And I think that's happening now here. Right now, and particularly in this moment, as the distrust is really starting to happen, and we're trying to figure out how to survive. Like I think we're kind of getting beyond just genre. To me,
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I think that's why the film stands the test of time because it's something you can relate to. You understand it, and it's believable, and it's cast so well that
that's
this
key.
limited amount of screen time that these characters have. Because, like you said at the beginning, you want to do an ensemble, you have to do the most you can with the limited amount of time you have and the dialogue that you have. And the dialogue is great, and it's believable. It's believable. That's the number one thing. It's believable. Each of these characters' protestations, issues, worries, concerns, and refusal to do certain things or push back when given orders, fits their character
Yeah.
and makes sense because of what the situation is and what's happening. So that makes you feel even more like you are in an actual film. This is actually happening as you're watching it, and it like allows you to like suspend your disbelief and slide into that film completely and ask yourself, like you've been asking, what would I do?
What would I do?
You know, yeah.
Yeah. And,
It's really
and
important.
right in this moment, in this tension where it's like, well, Gary had access to the key, Doc had access to the key. What was Clark doing? Windows runs down the hallway, breaks some glass, and pulls out a rifle.
Yep.
All the other guys come down. Daniel Moffat's character, Gary's got a gun on him. And we're like, oh, shit.
Put that down. No. I'll put this right through your head. You guys gonna listen to Gary? You gonna let him give the orders? I mean, he could be one of those things.
What's going to happen?
Yeah.
And Windows puts down the gun, and Daniel Moffat's holding that gun, and then he has a great moment where it's sort of, I think you'd all be a lot more comfortable if I put this down.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that is key
Yeah.
to what's going on in this movie. And now we have this moment of, okay, if Gary's not going to be in charge, who's going to be in charge?
Right. Childs tries to step up.
Yeah, Child's like, I'll be in charge.
Well, they try to offer it to Clark, I think, and Clark says,
Not to Clark,
Oh,
to
Norris.
To Norris.
Right. Norris says,
A lot of people in this movie.
I'm not up for it, or I'm not ready. I don't think I
Yeah.
can handle it, or I'm not ready to do it. And then Child steps up, and then Kurt takes the thing away from him and says, we need someone a little more level-headed.
Yeah.
And then it kind of defaults to Kurt, which I think is brilliant, to not have Kurt just step up or have everybody turn to him as some kind of messiah. It's actually done like organically as you would in a conversation. Like we found, okay, this guy, sure, we can kind of trust him. We'll do it with Mac.
Yeah. Why is it? What is it about him, do you think, that they go, okay.
I think A, he just has that energy and essence, and also B, because he's one of the guys, but also separate.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, the individualistic nature of him, even though when he's part with the guys, he still respects the guys. He does his own thing. And even at the beginning, when they're going to go to the Norwegian thing, Richard Dissert, as the doctor, says to him, we won't go if you don't want to go. Like, if you don't want to fly us, Mac, we won't go. So there's a kind of respect for Mac as that he's the kind of guy that knows a little bit more than everybody else naturally knows a little bit. Some people just are built that way. They have a more instinctual knowledge about how to do certain things, and you defer to them because you've seen it come out in conversation or in events.
Well, and this is this weird thing about leadership, and one of the things is that Mac he is calm and he's competent.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what he is doing, he only does things when he knows how to do them.
Yeah.
You know, where everyone else is kind of scrambling, he's really level-headed about this.
Yeah.
So they go outside, they burn all the blood, and now we're all standing in a circle. And this is almost like something about this that reminds me of standing in the circle in Excalibur around the round table. I mean, it's a totally different circumstance.
Right.
But like and Kurt Russell has this great speech.
I know I'm human. If you were all these things, then you'd just attack me right now. So some of you are still human. This thing doesn't want to show itself. It wants to hide inside an imitation. It'll fight if it has to. But it's vulnerable out in the open. If it takes us over, then it has no more enemies. Nobody left to kill it. And then it's won. There's a storm hitting us in 6 hours. We're going to find out who's who.
And what's interesting, too, with this distrust and all, one of the things that John Carpenter talked about is this is right at the very beginning of the AIDS epidemic.
Yes. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this, because at the time
That
it's 82.
totally makes sense.
But there's this disease. We don't quite know how it's transmitted. We know we don't know if you get it just by touching someone.
Everyone's afraid.
Yeah.
Shit. Was that in his mind in making this movie? Or
He said it in the commentary track. I don't know whether or not he was in his mind or not. I don't know.
Fascinating. Okay.
Yeah. So Kurt makes this great speech, and we're going to separate some people out. In particular, I think Doc, Gary, and Clark. We're going to tie them up and drug them with morphine. One of the things that Carpenter says, which doesn't surprise me, is that people freak out more from the close-up needle shots than they do from the crazy monster shots.
Of course, man.
A lot of people do not like needles.
People have a thing about it.
My wife in particular, she has a real, she has a serious.
I always look away.
Yeah, they don't bother me.
Okay.
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
There are a lot of other things.
Big tough guy, right?
Oh no, I have all sorts of other stuff that bothers the shit out of me, but needles aren't one of them. I don't like people touching their own belly buttons. That makes me uncomfortable. I don't know why.
All right, fair.
If you so if instead of having like an injection scene, I'd be like, yeah, whatever. But if you had a scene with someone just sticking their finger in their belly button in a close up in a movie, I'd be like, oh, stop it.
I'm gonna do a half-hour student film of just that.
Coming soon to the Cine-Files. Steve, you just forced me to watch it and record my reactions.
I'm gonna take your class and make that my thesis film.
Oh, Jesus Christ! Oh my God! No, it really. Just this discussion is upsetting me. I'm totally not kidding. I don't know why it is.
Just give me an A. You better give me an A.
Oh, you bastard! Okay. So we drug our guys.
Yeah.
We have Kurt alone. He records this message on that beautiful cassette recorder. It's exactly the same one that I had.
Nobody trusts anybody now. We're all very tired. Nobody trusts anybody now. There's nothing else I can do. Just wait.
You know, and I was wondering when I was watching it because he's hitting play and rewind and then holding down two buttons to hit record. And then he says this thing about nobody trusts each other. And he rewinds back and records over it.
Right.
And I was watching it going, if my son were to watch this, would he know what the fuck is going on?
Maybe not.
Because I know that you push play and record and how the, you know, but this technology doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
And then he goes to visit Fuchs.
Yes.
And walks in. And by the way, I should say, while he's recording this message, there was talk of having like a shadow go by or like other scare things.
Okay.
And what Carpenter decided to do is like, no, we just need these sort of shots. If you shoot someone and you shoot them in such a way that there's an empty open space behind them, we will be scared.
Yes.
Because what's going to come out of that space?
Right.
And then he has a shot from behind where you're looking at Kurt Russell's back and you feel like, who is watching him?
Right.
And just those shots alone create the tension. And then we go and Fuchs goes and visits Kurt, and he's got this beaker of clear liquid.
Yeah.
What's in that beaker?
I don't know. What is in that beaker?
I don't know either.
Okay.
Yeah, I my guess is like acid or something.
Probably.
Like a weapon that he's going to use. It's in a weird little scene, and then we stay with Fuchs, and the lights go out.
Yeah.
And then he's walking through holding the lighter.
Yeah.
This is where the shit gets scary.
Of course.
We have a shadow go by. Shoo. That's a classic sort of jump scare kind of moment. He goes outside with a torch, and he finds some torn up clothes with McCready's name on it. Where do you think these came from? Well, let me ask you this question.
Sure.
At this moment, are you suspecting McCready?
Kurt Russell's character, Mac?
Yes.
No, because we'd had that scene of him recording that stuff. I don't suspect him, but I like that everyone else suspects him.
Right.
That's great for the film.
If it hadn't been Kurt Russell and it had been just another actor, would you have suspected him?
Yes, absolutely.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think him being a star changes the way, because we know he is the star.
Right.
So we will suspect everybody else more than we will suspect him.
Right. But I also think the recording scene helps.
Yeah.
Because it makes it seem like he's, for posterity or to help people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we go inside, and now we can't find Fuchs, and we're going to do like a search party, and Palmer doesn't want to go with this person, and we're like going to split up. And
he doesn't want to go with TK.
He doesn't want to go to TK. That's right.
No, but he'll go with Childs. He just won't go with TK.
I just don't like this plan. This is one of the plans of the movie where I go, I don't understand. This doesn't seem that smart.
Well, I don't know why people like you watch these movies and think, you know what I would do in these situations.
Isn't that what everyone does?
Well, no, but I mean like you criticize like I don't know, it's been in a negative way. I mean this in a very playful way. Like sometimes we watch a film and we're like, oh, that doesn't seem like a good idea. And you're just like, yeah, you can say that sitting in the comfort of your fucking theater. But when you're actually in the situation, you're not thinking straight. You're not putting it all together. You're just like, okay, what sounds good? Sure, fuck it, let's do that. Okay.
Well, there's two different things, because a good movie doesn't mean that you have smart people coming up with good plans.
True.
You can have, I mean, like the fact that I go, and part of the fun of watching is going, well, what would I do? Or that's part of the fun for me.
Right.
That's what I like doing, is thinking through, like, well, what would I do in this situation?
I enjoy that, but once they make a decision, I don't question the decision. I just go, fuck it, here we go. Like, where's this going to go?
Of course. No, I'm with you. I agree.
Yeah.
But because that's the decision they made.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like if you watch a I don't know, a romantic comedy, and you see the horrible choices people make in the relationship. They're trying to. That's not making the movie bad. You're
That's
just going,
true.
oh, don't do that. Oh no. Oh, that's a terrible idea.
And I should probably turn the microscope on me too, because when I watch sports, I'm like, "Why'd you do that?
Yeah.
Why didn't you run there?"
That's part of the.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly
You're right.
horror movies in particular are
yeah.
like, don't go down that hallway. Don't go. No, don't go into the. No, what are you doing?
Some of the best comedic sets are talking about stuff like that.
Yeah. So they split up, and I love McCready goes and checks on Blair, and they open up the little window in the door.
Little half conversation, isn't
and
it?
Blair's like, "No, I'm. Let me back. I don't like being out here. Can I come back?"
Almost like a child.
It's very childlike,
right?
I don't want to stay out here anymore. I want to come back inside. Funny things. I hear funny things out here.
Did you come across Fuchs?
It ain't Fuchs. I'm not going to harm anybody, and there's nothing wrong with me. And if there was, I'm all better now. I'd like to come back inside. Now, you got my promise.
And what is behind Blair's right shoulder?
The noose.
A noose.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, the scene is just amazing on itself.
Yep.
Is like his Wilford Brimley's performance, and it's just, no, I'm calmed down. I'm not going to hurt anybody.
Right.
I'm very calm, and please let me come back. And he's like, no, we can't do that with that noose that we never talk about. Sitting in the background. Okay, I'm going to ask this question again.
Yeah.
Is he an alien?
I don't know at this point. I really can't say, because I don't know if he put that noose or the guys put that noose and said, if you start to feel like you're turning, hang yourself.
Oh, I think he put that noose.
You think he built it?
I think he, because, and this is where I go, and I think about that guy who slit his wrist and his throat.
Right.
Is like, he's going, like part of me is going, maybe he is, he's nervous about becoming an alien, or he is an alien, or he's having a battle with in his own soul.
That's really
But
possible.
I think that noose is sort of, I can't be the one who destroys the world.
Yes.
You know?
Well, that's great to read that into that. I love that.
That's how I feel about it. But what's going to mess this up a little bit, like in terms of how much time has passed and when does Blair become an alien, is that what we're going to find out at the end is that there's this whole tunnel under the tool shed, and he's building a spaceship.
Yes.
Well, that couldn't happen I don't know how fast aliens can build shit. I mean, they do have a lot of tentacles and stuff.
So he's been an alien the whole time?
I don't, this is what I don't know.
I think so.
Since the dog showed up.
Yeah, because to build the
seems like it would take some time.
That, it would take some time.
So okay, because one of the other questions is the dog at the beginning walked into a room with a shadow, a silhouette of a figure. I don't know.
That's a great point.
Yeah, we don't.
Because he's been building it from the helicopter parts. So every time
that's right,
he's running around, or you see something running.
Oh, that's a
him.
good. That's so maybe he was an alien.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a good point.
Certainly possible.
It's possible.
You can make the case.
But the other thing too is we've already had other people be aliens.
Yeah.
So it could have been one of these other people who was an alien.
Sure.
Like we're going to find out that Palmer, we don't know when Palmer gets infected.
Right.
He could have been down there with Blair building the helicopter too.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a whole nother movie where they're all building the helicopter.
They just go like, all right, let's get out of here.
They're trying to sneak away.
So he sends, I forget who it is. He sends one of the guys to go, you go back into the place. Where are you going? We're going up to my shack because when I was there earlier, I did not leave the light on.
Yeah.
And his shack, which is sort of like kind of a, like the tower sort of thing. And so they go off towards this tower with the light on. This seems also really scary. And we go back inside, and 45 minutes have passed, and Childs is looking up at the shack, and the light is off.
Yeah.
And they decide, time to close all the doors and board them up. And man, they start boarding up the doors, and McCready and TK, Knowles, is outside.
Yep.
And we don't know what has happened to them. And Vance, who's the big guy, or Norris, is it Norris? Maybe it's Vance. It's Vance Norris. Maybe that's his name. Anyway, when he's boarding up the door, then this thing happened that you mentioned before, which he sort of grimaces in pain, and immediately we're like, "Oh, no, dude, alien."
Absolutely.
And in comes Knowles. He makes it back. Obviously, really cold, because what they say is nobody can live out there.
Right.
I mean, the storm is it's 40 degrees below, is really bad up there. Knowles comes back in. They say, "Where's McCready?" He says, "I cut him loose."
Yeah.
Because Knowles also found the torn up clothes, and he's like, McCready is the alien.
Yeah.
And they go, then we have a sort of major oh shit.
Yeah. All start flipping out.
Yep. And I think too, for us, we go, I think this is the moment I do start to suspect McCready.
Okay.
Like, oh, what could have happened here?
Right.
Then they hear a window break, and they go, "Oh no, the storage room."
Well, first, Steve, before the window breaks, which I love, is this moment of the door handle.
Oh, you're right.
Right? The door handle thing is so great because it builds the horror of like, this thing is trying to get in. And the fact that he's not knocking on the door saying like, hey, let me in, let me in. He's just twisting the handle over and over and over again. It keeps these guys in the state of mind of like, this guy is the alien because he's not saying anything.
Yeah.
Right? So that when he bursts through the window, it's believable to these guys to think that Kurt Russell is an alien because he didn't say anything. But the reason he probably didn't speak is because, like you said, it's cold as shit out there.
Yeah.
Opening your mouth too much, it'll get into your lungs. It could freeze you, right? Anything could happen.
Yeah, I've never been in anything remotely that cold.
Yeah.
Like I've been in below zero.
Well, I've been to those Titanic exhibits and put my face on the iceberg. That was fuck all that.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be how cold the water actually was that night.
Oh, yeah.
Holy shit, dude.
Yeah.
So no.
So the window breaks.
Yeah.
He's in the storage room. Childs gets the axe. You see all the actors kind of step back because he is swinging that thing like crazy.
Yeah.
The shot of Kurt Russell in the storage room, half frozen, clutching a thing of dynamite and a torch, is amazing.
That's classic.
And his performance is really good.
Oh, yeah.
Of like completely physically destroyed by the cold.
Yeah.
Shivering, but also still like...
Anyone messes with me and the whole camp goes. Come on, child. Burn me. Put those torches on the floor and back off.
Because again, in addition to having multiple flamethrowers, we obviously have to have a lot of dynamite at this research station.
Yeah.
Research is very exciting.
They're clearly blowing holes and shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he makes them put the flamethrowers down, and David Keith unscrews the top and blows the fire out. And then just you thinking there's a little bit of peace, then Knowles and Norris jump Kurt Russell, and they you think he's going to get subdued, and then Kurt Russell throws him off, and that's when Norris just completely shuts down physically.
Yeah.
Looks like he's having a heart attack, right? And then they run over, and there's like, oh, he's not breathing.
They put him on a table.
Yep.
And now McCready is wearing a flamethrower, holding dynamite and a torch.
This motherfucker's going to stay alive. No
Doc comes. They get Doc up, who had been tied up.
Yeah.
They bring him in. They call for a defibrillator.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing.
I love this scene, man.
We know something is going to happen.
Sure, something.
But it is impossible that any human ever, I think, could know what is going to happen. We put the defibrillator, the paddles on him, clear, shock, boom. We go, oh, nope, still no pulse. Shock him again.
Yes.
His hands go down.
Oh.
The whole chest cavity opens up with teeth.
Teeth!
And chops off the end of Doc's arms.
My God.
Clear.
It is, I think it might be one of the best sort of shocking moments I can think of in film.
One of the greatest scare moments, absolutely. Because you do not see that coming.
No, who could ever see that coming?
Right? Because you've seen what it can do, but it has to be obvious when it's doing what it's doing. In this moment, it has internally turns this human's chest into a fucking jaw. Essentially, a bear trap for a chest, and takes half the guy's arms off of both of his. It's amazing.
A couple things about this: the actor playing Norris is there, and had to be lying down, strapped into a harness, essentially for 10 or 12 hours, and there really wasn't anything they could. And I don't know how they dealt with like peeing and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'd have to pee.
I mean, it just and that the first take didn't go well, and then it was 4 hours of reset. I mean, just brutal. The Doc's arms are made out of Jell-O.
Yeah.
That's how they did that. And I forget what the bone stuff was. And then what we're going to see is just some insane, crazy monster stuff that kind of belies description. I mean, the alien comes out of the stomach.
Yes.
The stretching head on the table as it's separating apart and weird tentacles are coming out.
Yeah, man.
And by the way, one of the things, so they're doing all this. Some of this is done separately somewhere else when they're just doing the effect. And they're doing the stretching head. And I guess there's like a fumes emitted by the chemicals they've used to make the stretching rubber
really?
stuff. And then someone says, well, in order to match the shot, they've just fired the flamethrower, and so there's fire in the room, so we should put fire in the background. So they go, okay. So they get basically it's like, on the inside of gas barbecues, there's like the metal tube that the flames come out of. They have basically that with gas, and they light it, and there are these fumes, and there's like a ball of fire.
Holy shit.
Because they just didn't think about the fact that the fumes being put out by the chemicals they used in this thing were flammable. Yeah, and it's really scary. Jesus. But that's the stretching headshot is just really disturbing.
It's amazing.
Yeah. This stuff is really good.
Yeah.
And McCready torches everything.
Yeah.
And the head has separated from the body and pulls itself around the room with its tongue.
But this is what's great about this moment, Steve, for me watching it again, is this thing wants to live. No matter what it takes.
Yeah, absolutely.
It has this incredible desire to live.
And powers to adapt that are...
Yes. But that's why you almost respect it at the same time as you're being scared out of your fucking mind by it. Because what adds to the horror is its unquenchable desire to live. It will do whatever it takes to live.
What's funny is...
And that scares the shit out of you.
This sounds weird. I don't find that, like the head and the spider legs pop out, that doesn't scare me exactly.
Well, it scares me for me, it scares me in the way that this thing it will do whatever it has to do.
Right, but it's not like... So I'm more scared in the moments of anticipation of things happening, and the teeth in the stomach are fucking shocking.
Yeah, really.
But now, once it becomes full monster, I'm kind of going, oh, look at that. Wow.
Right.
Like the thing I would relate it to, which is a much bigger budget film, but like it sprouts the spider legs and is sort of skittering around.
Yeah.
As compared to in Aliens, where they're in the infirmary and they're trapped with a face hugger.
Right.
That is way scarier. That sequence
absolutely.
is so much scarier.
Right.
Than this is. This is more like, look at the fun, silly monster. It's not silly. That's not what I want to say.
Don't say silly.
Not silly, but I mean, it's like a weird freak. But like, oh wow, look at that thing.
Right, but you have to create the right monster and its characteristics for the right movie.
Agreed.
Like that skittering around thing wouldn't work as well in The Thing.
No.
I like that it's the slow dread, the slow build of this entire movie is helped by having an alien like this, which is why they don't let him get away with just sprouting tentacles out of its head and it escapes.
Yeah.
Right? And I think in Alien it would have escaped. Like the thing when it bursts out of John Hurt's stomach in the original Alien escapes. But this thing tries to escape, and you have this great comic relief moment where these two guys turn and one guy goes,
"You gotta be fucking kidding."
And that's exactly how somebody would respond in a group of men. One would turn to see this thing, go, "You got to be fucking kidding me!" And that's brilliant.
And one design element that I just have to mention for those of you who haven't seen the film is I love that the head is upside down.
Yes,
on the spider body. It is just so weird looking. Yeah. And they torch that thing.
Yeah, they do.
And now we're back. Okay, we're gonna go. We're safe from that thing.
Yeah.
Still pretty freaked out at who else is an alien.
Right.
And we're gonna do this blood test, and we get into this room.
Oh, this is my favorite scene in the movie.
It's a fantastic scene.
Yep.
And McCready wants to do the blood test, and he's got a revolver in his hand. And we have seen this started during the medical scene where they were doing the defibrillator. That there was medical tools on a table, and people were looking down at Clark, I think, is looking down at the scalpel, and then we see a scalpel in someone's hand. At first, I don't think we know quite whose it is.
Yeah.
And holding this scalpel and hiding it from everybody else, and McCready with the gun.
Yep.
And then I think you realize that it is Clark, in fact, that has the scalpel.
Yep.
And McCready is going to force everyone to do this blood test.
And by the way, Clark's on edge already, which we didn't touch on, because Wilford Brimley's character, the doctor, has also gone down and killed all the dogs with an axe.
Oh, that's right.
And so you get the feeling that Clark was the trainer of these dogs, was in charge of these dogs.
Right.
They were his dogs.
Yeah.
And so he's already on edge about everything else. Now he's lost all his dogs. So in this moment...
Well, and he might very well be an alien.
He might right, exactly. We have no idea.
And Childs, Keith David's like, you're going to have to kill me rather than do a blood test.
Yes.
He ain't tying me up.
Then I'll have to kill you, Childs.
Then kill me.
I mean it.
And there's a long moment where finally Child's like, I think you are going to kill
Yeah,
me. Okay.
it is.
And at that moment, Clark attacks.
Yeah.
I guess you do.
With the blade, with the scalpel at McCready, and McCready shoots him right in the head.
Square in the head, dude.
Yeah. And by the way,
kills him.
Yeah, and kills him. And it happens very, very fast.
It does.
And it's very, very close. And that's a quarter load blank in the gun. And they were really scared.
Oh, shit.
And so for those of you who don't know, people tend to think, oh, I'm shooting blanks, therefore
Right.
they're harmless.
Nothing comes out.
Yeah,
That's not true.
That is not true. There is an explosion.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the very famous story of John Eric Hexum. Do you remember this?
Yes,
When we
of
were
course.
kids? He was on a TV show called
Voyagers, yeah.
And there was a prop gun, and he put it to his head and pulled the trigger with blanks and as a joke.
Yeah.
And he killed him.
He killed him.
Yeah.
Same thing happened with Brandon Lee.
Yeah.
Well, on the set of The Crow. That's
Yeah.
how he died, was a prop.
It was a prop gun. I think it's
Yeah.
because that was I think the gun was improperly loaded. 'Cause
Right,
it wasn't
improperly
that
loaded.
close.
Right.
But they were really scared, and everyone was fine. But it was a scary because it had to happen really fast, and the gunshot had to go off fairly close, but not too close. And
Right.
figuring out exactly what the distance is a little scary. So now he's dead, and we're going to draw a little bit of everybody's blood, and we're going to put it in these.
When Clark attacks, and I like this, Steve, is after he kills him, there's a moment of silence. Like,
Oh,
these
yeah.
guys are like, not because, oh, fuck, Kurt means business. It's like, oh, fuck, one of us is actually dead right in front of us in that way. Like, it's that real extension of the suspicion is this level now. That
Well-
he will shoot first in any situation now. And
Well,
it's next level.
You know, you might have protected yourself from an alien. You might have been in self-defense because the guy was going to kill you.
Yeah.
But you might very well have just killed an innocent
Yeah,
guy.
which we find out.
In fact, it's true because we're
You
going to
did.
do this blood
Yep.
test.
Mhm.
We take blood from everybody, and we put it in these little vials, and we're heating up a wire with the flamethrower, and we stick it in because Kurt Russell believes that, how he's figured this out, I have no idea, but that every single cell of this alien wants to live, has
Yeah.
its own independent desire to live, and since it can do all these crazy transformations, if we hit it, if we threaten one of those cells, they will do something.
Which is logical. I think it's great logic.
Sure.
I think it's great logic.
Oh, it is. It is. It's like you don't have a whole lot of evidence from this, but that's okay. The movie is it's all good,
They call him hypothesis for a reason, to test him out.
and he does.
He does.
So, and one of the first ones we test is Clark's blood.
Yeah.
He wasn't an alien.
No, he wasn't,
So
man.
Kurt Russell just shot a guy.
That's what Child says to him. You
Yeah.
just committed murder.
Yep.
Yeah.
We go through some more. We really think. Let's see. What's the order we do it in? Because let's get this. Let's
Yeah, you
get
gotta
this
get that
right.
right.
It's not Windows, so
No.
he gives Windows a flamethrower.
Yeah.
Doc was normal.
Yes.
Sadly, also dead.
Yes.
Clark, we just said. And then he goes to test Palmer's blood.
And this is great because you have no suspicion of Palmer.
Right.
Palmer's been making smart ass comments the whole time. Palmer, when it looks at the head crawling, says, "You got to be fucking kidding me." You just have no
Yeah.
concept it's going to be Palmer.
Yeah.
And then it's Palmer.
And he puts the red hot wire into the petri dish, and
Yeah.
this weird thing shoots out.
It's like a jack in a box. Man.
Yeah. And by the way, that's a fake hand that Kurt Russell is holding the petri dishes, so the effect is loaded in the arm.
Oh,
that's how they did. That's
brilliant!
How they did that. Yeah. And as soon as the blood hits the ground and it starts heading back towards Palmer. And I love simple practical effects.
Yeah.
The thing that's making the blood move is it's on a slanted table, so it's just gravity. That's smart effects.
Brilliant.
And then Palmer, who is tied up, starts to mutate.
This is so great, dude.
It is craziness what happens now.
Well, because once again, this is believable. Guys are tied to him, flipping the fuck out at the top of their lungs. Kurt Russell is all of a sudden now his flamethrower doesn't work, and then the other guy who's
Windows
is trying to make the radio work. He's like
he chokes.
He chokes
freaked out.
right
Yeah,
because
he
he's scared,
freezes.
and someone is going to choke in situations like he's never been.
Every time that a crazy mutating alien has attacked me, I have choked. I'm really
So
sorry.
someone's
about
going to choke, but then the floor moves, right? And the thing, it's almost like something out of an amusement park. And then the jacks where they're sitting, the set of chairs are sitting jacks back into the ground.
No,
and
is
then
crazy.
It becomes what it becomes, and it
Yeah.
steps out. And Kurt Russell's yelling at Windows to set it on fire, and he chokes. And
Yeah.
that thing grabs him by the head. Its head splits open once again,
Yep.
taking body part, turning into jaws. grabs the head, and then starts swinging that fucking body all around the room. It's awesome.
It's totally crazy. Finally, Kurt Russell gets his flamethrower to work.
Yeah.
And one of the things I was thinking about is like, you have to remember, this is all practical effects. If you're seeing flame, this is flame.
Yeah.
And shooting off flamethrowers in a small room seems like really scary. And the actors everyone's fairly close to what's happening here.
Yeah. You gotta trust.
Yeah, there's this moment, by the way, where Palmer ends up on the ceiling, and like this, like crazy shit happens.
It's wicked.
Lights him on fire. He runs out into the snow on fire, and then we have to kill Windows now.
Yeah,
so we torch him too.
Right. Who's starting to shiver and become probably what he's going to become.
Yeah.
And so that's why the
and by the way, when Palmer goes out in the snow and he's on fire, and then Kurt Russell throws the dynamite stick at him, apparently that explosion was really close to him and knocked him way off his feet, and it was.
Kurt Russell?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He said that was the in the commentary track I listened to, like that was the most intense explosive, that he had ever felt in his acting career, which he's been around a lot of explosions.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was bad.
Is the commentary track him and John Carpenter?
Yeah.
Oh,
it's a good one too.
I got to listen to that one.
It's good. They're fun.
Yeah, I would definitely listen to that one.
Then we burn windows. We go through some more lab tests.
Yeah.
Knowles is fine. Childs is fine. Moffat is the only one left tied up.
Oh, God, I love this line.
And we've suspected him for a while.
Yes.
He's fine too. And by the way, I love that Moffat's still tied up. Everyone now has a flamethrower, all pointing at him, testing. He's fine. And then his line is great. Do you remember what it is?
It's brilliant. I know that you gentlemen have been through a lot, but I'd like for you to untie.
I'd rather not spend the rest of
my the rest of my tied to this fucking chair.
Yeah. It's great.
It's fucking great. And then it fades to black. Why?
Yep.
But you got to savor that entire scene. That's why it fades to black. You have to take a moment.
So it seems like we're pretty good. Everyone that's alive is fine.
Sure.
Oh, wait. What about Blair?
Right.
So they go out to give Blair the test, and they tell Childs to burn Blair.
Yeah.
If they Blair's door is open.
Yeah.
The noose is hanging in the middle of the room. How did he get out? They look at the floorboards, pull up the floorboards. Apparently there's a tunnel underneath the tool shed. I guess you have to go down.
Yeah. It's a white person horror film. White people always got to go to the danger.
I know.
You got to walk down in there.
We go into the tunnel, and we find that Blair's been building this spaceship, as we mentioned before.
Yeah.
And we're back in the base, and we have this POV shot where the camera is sort of moving through the hallways, and John Carpenter's music.
Yeah.
And there's been some really good Ennio Morricone movie music throughout as well.
Absolutely.
That's orchestral and really good. But John Carpenter movie music goes with John Carpenter movies, as far as I'm concerned.
I agree with you.
And so we get the sense something's going on. And one thing we don't see is Childs.
Yeah.
We don't know where he is. The power goes out. And we hear that 6 hours from now, it's going to be 100 below. And this is where we really know, like, oh, we're not getting out of this.
Yeah.
We're probably not surviving this. And this is what Kurt Russell says, which is interesting, is that whatever we do, we can't let the thing freeze again.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it seems... there was always like moments where I was like, you seem to know. I don't know if does that make sense? But it's fine.
Yeah.
That's what they want to do. And maybe they're just going to, and this is where they decide, let's burn the whole place down.
Yeah.
But apparently we have tons of dynamite and gasoline, and we're just going to wipe the whole place out. If we're not getting out of here alive, but neither is that thing.
Yeah.
Okay. They blow up the spaceship. They drive like a tractor through a wall, light that shit on fire. Everyone is now wearing dynamite. Still going, where's Childs?
Yeah.
What happened to him? They're pouring gas everywhere, which they're lighting. They're throwing dynamite everywhere, Molotov cocktails. They go down into the basement, and there's steam and dripping water. And they notice, and I love this moment, it's like where Moffat says the generator's gone. And he goes, any way we can fix it? It's like, no, it's gone.
Yeah.
That's a great moment. And we're setting dynamite around to blow the place up. We have the classic dynamite plunger, which Kurt Russell is setting up. And here's again the thing about scary movies is anytime someone starts moving through a space and they don't look at the whole space, we are scared.
Yeah.
You know, like one of the basic rules to scary movies should be, I mean, this I guess goes to like Scream and stuff.
Yeah.
As soon as you walk into a room, you should look everywhere.
Yes, absolutely.
Ceiling, floor, all the walls, take a full 360 around. Don't walk in with your back to half the room,
Right.
which is exactly what Moffat does.
Yeah.
Walks into a room, just distracted by some other stuff.
Yeah.
Who appears? Blair.
Well, he's laying the wire down.
Right.
And the whole time, it's great the way it's done because you see his light swinging left to right as he's moving this stuff. And you're like, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? And then he looks up, and then you have Blair in the light, which is great. Just enough light to look menacing as fuck. And then he puts his hand in Moffat's mouth. And it's horrific.
And it's where his face, skin is stretching. And John Carpenter said, man, Wilford, that was such great acting. What were you thinking about when you did that? And Wilford Brimley said, I was just thinking about picking up my laundry. Or doing my laundry.
Doing his laundry?
Yeah.
Right, of course. It's nothing to him.
And then there's this weird shot where he's dragging Moffat away with like the skin face stretched. And it is really, really weird. And then... who else is left with him?
Knowles, T.K. Carter. Yeah, he sees
Yeah.
He catches the last glimpse of the body as it's moving past him, and then walks forward, calling Moffat's name, and then silence.
Yeah,
and then Kurt Russell.
And again, we should establish some rules.
Yeah, you think
like don't go off alone. If you're going to go somewhere, let's talk to everybody.
Right.
But he doesn't, and now there's this moment where McCready is alone.
Yeah,
and realizes he's alone.
Yes.
How's it coming in there? I said, how's it?
This is a scary scene.
Yep.
This is really tense. And he lights a stick of dynamite and holds it. By the way, one thing that stressed me out throughout the whole movie, there's so many scenes where he's holding those big, powerful flares, which apparently were really smoky and dripped weird liquid, and you easily burn your hands on them because they get so hot. They don't last that long either.
Right.
They're so powerful. And Kurt Russell has that beautiful mane of hair.
Yeah, he does.
And he's holding those flares really close to his head. And now he's holding a lit stick of dynamite, and suddenly the whole floor like wheels up at him, comes towards him. Which the way they did it is they built the set 6 feet off the ground, built a track under the set so that they could roll something underneath to knock out all the floorboards as it came forward.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's really interesting how they do it. And big, huge, now we're getting to crazy town. Tentacles coming out from a big hole in the ground. Tentacle grabs the plunger and pulls it under.
Yep.
Oh, man. And then the monster.
In all its glory.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's a little bit Wilford Brimley.
Yeah. A little bit dog.
A little bit dog.
Yeah.
Weird tentacles, claws, teeth, mouth, eyes, all just, it's a lot.
It's fantastic.
He said, John Carpenter says it took 50 people to operate this.
Not a surprise.
Yeah.
It's so huge.
Huge. McCready does a beautiful roll, tucks and rolls, grabs some dynamite, throws it at the monster. Apparently, they spent a long time. They knew he had to have a line.
Yeah.
But they spent a long time debating what it's going to be. I love that they come up with, and fuck you too.
Yeah, exactly.
And fuck you too is
Sometimes
great.
the simple way is the best way.
Yeah. And the whole place blows up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Finally, he's outside the burning building. And who does he run into but Childs with a flamethrower?
Yeah.
This is a great last scene.
It's great.
And they sit down, and there's just kind of a conversation between the two of them.
Yep.
Both of them suspect the other one could be an alien.
Mm-hmm.
But and we don't really get to know.
No.
You the only one who made it?
Not the only one.
Did you kill it?
Where were you, Charles?
Thought I saw Blair. I went out after him. Got lost in the storm. Fire's got the temperature up all over the camp. Won't last long, though.
Neither will we.
How will we make it?
Maybe we should.
If you're worried about me.
If we've got any surprises for each other. I don't think we're in much shape to do anything about it.
Well, what do we do?
Why don't we just wait here for a little while? see what happens.
Which do you understand? This is why I love the film. Sometimes ambiguous endings on film are amazing.
Agreed.
And this is one of those. The fact that you don't know if they're an alien or who's an alien. And it's ironic that Kurt said the last thing we need to do is let this thing freeze again. And 100 degrees is
Below.
coming away 6 hours from now. 100 degrees below zero is coming 6 hours from now, which means they're both going to freeze.
Right.
So that thing may still, and that's the thing that was amazing, brother, is I give it up to the Hollywood gods that they never made a sequel.
It's shocking to me.
Because I think a sequel would destroy this thing. The fact that it took 34 years to get a Blade Runner sequel, 35 years to get a Blade Runner sequel, I'm incredibly happy about that. I saw 2049. I loved it. So for me, it took that long for them to do a sequel to Blade Runner. If they ever do a sequel to Thing, Kurt Russell's still alive.
Right.
I would love for them to have a shot at doing, or Denis Villeneuve to do a Thing sequel. That would be awesome. Or Guillermo del Toro, like something where it's either Keith David in the end who was an alien, and then boom, what happens after that?
It's one of the movie exists so much in its own world.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, and its ambiguity, because what you would have to do is explain shit.
Yes, you would.
You know, like that's kind of what sequels do.
You would.
You know, let's talk. So, and what's interesting is that this is a movie where, as we said, it didn't do that well.
Yeah.
But over time, it is one of those movies that people have watched over and over and over again. And I think part of it is the great ensemble cast.
Yes.
Part of it is the great special effects. And a big part of it, I think, is this doesn't look like other movies.
No.
You know what I mean? Like all the snow and it just is really, it fits into its own kind of world.
I would put this in the box with The Fly, Cronenberg's The Fly.
Yeah.
And I would put this in the box with Blade Runner as well. There are these films that came out at like the early 80s time that still hold up and still affect and still transcend the genre, even 35 years later, 30 years later, because what they did was ahead of their time and classic in a way.
Well, and The Fly in particular, because both of those are remakes of classic monster movies.
Yes.
And that are then taken to a... It's actually a great comparison, because both The Fly and The Thing take what was sort of a cheesy monster concept and then add this human emotion to it, because you really feel for what's happening in The Fly.
Right.
I mean, The Fly isn't just that it's scary. In fact, the best parts of The Fly to me are just all the relationship and watching Jeff Goldblum go through that process. And it's handled with so much more seriousness.
Yeah, and they twisted around in The Fly too, because in the original with Vincent Price, he's a sympathetic character in terms of like, he's like the scientist who's pursuing the situation, and it happened to him an accident, and then he's starting to become this thing, and he's like, feel sorry for me. And then when you see the human, when he is at the end, he's the human brain. Oh my God, that was insane. And then he kills it with a rock, right?
Yeah.
That broke my heart. Like it emotionally moved me when I remember seeing it as a kid.
Right.
This Seth Brundle that he's doing, Jeff Goldblum is doing in The Fly, is a completely different person.
Arrogant, complicated, cynical.
And what makes him fantastic for that version of The Fly.
Yeah.
And then in the end, sympathetic, because he gives Gina Davis the option to kill him. It's fantastic.
Well, and it's Cronenberg.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm glad this came up, because Cronenberg and Carpenter are very different filmmakers.
It's true.
But they're also both interested in genre and aren't embarrassed about genre.
Yes.
You know what I mean? They're like, no, this is what I like. I like to explore, and that and in a way, this is kind of what the Cine-Files is about, which is not to disrespect any kind of movie. Is that you can make great films in any of these areas, and The Thing is a perfect example of one that goes kind of beyond genre. And it's funny too, is like, you can, if you like the monster creature, bloody, scary stuff, there's nothing like The Thing.
Right.
And if you like the tension, who can we trust stuff, there's nothing like The Thing.
Right.
You know? And there's some great jump scares and some great filmmaking, and you get to watch all of these character actors just doing their job at the top of the game, and you get Kurt Russell, who I love.
Yeah.
So for me, it's funny. It's not a movie I've watched over. I've certainly seen it several times, but I haven't watched it over and over and over again. But every time I see it, I go, man, this is really good.
Yeah.
So those are actually kind of my final thoughts.
Okay.
So what are yours?
My final thoughts is this is a film, but once again, we've talked about this a number of times now. It elevates the genre. It takes the genre and the elements of the genre that you recognize, you've seen before, going all the way back to the 50s in black and white. You've seen these beats before in sci-fi films, and it takes it to a whole nother level, and it makes it about what, and this is really interesting what Steve mentioned, what Carpenter mentioning, AIDS. I think any disease, bubonic plague, what have you, we are naturally afraid of things we don't understand.
Sure.
And when we are confronted with the first time, we have to grasp its existence, and grasping its existence, we think the worst possible thing about it. And so we react accordingly to that. And that's what you see here in the film. This thing is legitimately something to be afraid of. But in the end, it is just trying to get home. And it's doing whatever it can to get home. And I think that adds another piece to this element. Much like the unknowable Michael Myers, the thing is unknowable too, because we don't know its actual motivation. We don't know where it came from other than outer space. We don't know what kind of species it is. If there's multiple things like this, if there's a leader, like why it even came and crash landed on Earth, we don't know anything. This could have been a guy going for a joyride and then crashes on Earth because his engine broke or something like that. So it can be as simple as that. And it's just trying to get the fuck off Earth any way possible. And if people would just leave it alone, it might actually accomplish it and get the fuck off Earth and not kill anybody. But what's brilliant about this also is it exposes what happens when people are together and experiencing fear at the same time. How we, no matter how strong our connections are, we can start to
turn on each other.
Yeah. And I think that's a human thing. And that's what I enjoy about the best of this genre of films. The best of them do that. The best of them show you the human condition, how it can react, and how it can be brave, but also how it can be cowardly as well, and how we can turn on each other no matter what our connection or time spent with each other is when it comes to survival, whatever it takes. And just like that creature, humans are the same way. And I think it's brilliant about the film.
That's great. It's funny, as you were talking, I just suddenly had this image of taking The Thing and E.T. and swapping the aliens. So you'd have Elliot and Drew Barrymore, and they have this thing in the closet, and these tentacles come out, and it takes over Drew Barrymore, and it attacks the dog and all. Right. And then have Kurt Russell with a flamethrower chasing E.T. around Antarctica. I think these would be amazing movies.
Phone home, just want to phone home. That would be brilliant.
All right.
That's a hell of a movie.
Well, anyone who wants to somehow put that together, when please do it and send us a trailer.
I would like it to be E.T. and Kurt Russell at the end of the movie just staring at each other. Who's going to kill each other first?
So that's what we think about The Thing. Of course, we always want to hear what you think. You can visit us on our Facebook page. Please leave your comments there. It's at the Cine-Files. That's CINE-FILES. You can subscribe to us on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Google Play, on YouTube. We've gotten a lot more subscribers on YouTube. It's great. We love reading your comics there.
Thank you.
At the beginning of the show, we already talked about Patreon on our website, so I'm going to skip them. But I am going to say that you can reach me, as always, on Twitter at SRMorris. John, where can they reach you?
You guys can always reach me at The Rocha Says, ROCHA, on Twitter and on Instagram. Of course, the Top 10 Show on SK Plus Podcast Channel every Tuesday. Outlaw Nation every Thursday on the SK Plus Podcast Channel. And start watching Collider. They're giving me more and more opportunity to host shows and be on shows. And so I pop up on all the shows now. TV Talk, Movie Talk, Jedi Council, Mailbag, everything that they do. They're heroes every once in a while. It's been a joy and a great pleasure to be a part of the Collider family officially. And so if you want to watch more of my stuff, go there and subscribe, and you'll see me pop up every once in a while.
And as long as one of us is not taken over by aliens, we will see you next time on the Cine-Files.